Norman was sitting in his room setting up his new full-dive virtual reality headset that had just been released. He had followed the tech since they announced it and had read all the reviews from the beta testers, and all of them said it was so good to miss. So he saved up any extra money he earned while he waited for it to come out and waited in line all night for the midnight release of the headset. Now he was seconds from turning it on and diving into the video game fantasy life. He placed the headset on his head and turned it on. Norman felt as though he was being pulled through a portal. There were a ton of colors and moving shapes, but after a few seconds it ended and he found himself inside, standing in the square of a large fantasy castle town. Norman was prompted to make a character that he would then physically play as during the game. He wanted to play as an assassin, someone who kills their targets quickly and quietly, so he made his character small, with short brown hair. He put most of the stats he was given at the start into dexterity, and he got a starting skill that allowed him to turn into a shadow and move around, which was perfect for popping out suddenly and killing a target, and thanks to his class, he gets 3 times the damage when sneak attacking. Once his character was created, he was put into it, and it was so strange to not only be so short and thin but to move around as a shadow. After adjusting to it and messing around, Norman went and found a quest to do. It was a monster-slaying quest. A knight in town told Norman that a nearby cave had an Arachne Queen living in it, and she'd been sending tons of spider minions into the town to harass and kidnap the woman who lived there. It was now Norman's job to go into the cave and kill the queen. Seemed simple enough. It was also a level 5 quest, so he could use it to level up and get stronger quickly. So he headed to the location of the cave alone. The cave was long and dark, and there were a ton of spider minions, all of which were easy to kill, as they were all level 1 to 3. There were enough of them for Norman to level up twice, so now he was only 2 levels below the quest recommended level. Norman was now reaching the center of the cave and what he assumed was the Arachne Queen's lair. There were tons of spider webs with different things cocooned. Norman walked slowly and was looking all around for the queen. He thought he was being cautious, but it turned out his skills and abilities were not up to the task of fighting this monster, as he was shot from the back and hit with a paralyzing poison. The Spider Queen then took advantage of his being unable to move and placed him on her giant web. The paralyzing effect wore off a few seconds later, but thanks to being placed in the webs, he was still stuck because his strength stat was too low. He was forced to watch as the queen hatched more minions and ordered them to bring a woman back to the cave. Hoping to somehow get out, Norman started to talk to the Arachne Queen. He asked her why she was trying to kidnap women, and she looked at him, but instead of an evil look, she seemed sad. Which he wasn't expecting. She told Norman that she merely wanted a daughter, but the evil humans in town had killed off all the male Arachne around, so she was unable to reproduce. Instead, all she could do was make the minions who have no personality and are controlled by her. She then said that every time her minions get into town at night or someone kills them, so despite just wanting one female to convert into an Arachne like her, she was miserably failing at every step. Norman, now knowing what she wanted, now needed to know what she was going to do with him. She shrugged and said she was going to cocoon him and save him for food for her future daughter. Norman freaked out. Everything in this game was super realistic, and he figured being eaten or killed was going to be the same, and he didn't want that. So being desperate, he asked if he could somehow act as her daughter. She stopped for a minute and looked at him. She went from looking at him annoyed to calling herself foolish for not thinking of that herself. She said the process would work on anyone, no matter their gender or species. In the end, they'll be just like her. Then she laughed about how she almost wasted this chance. She then ran up to Norman and bit his neck, and he felt some strange fluid flow into him. It was strange, as it wasn't like the poison that paralyzed him. The queen told Norman she'd see him soon and then began to put him into a cocoon. It was a bit hard to breathe and he couldn't see anything, but after a few minutes, he passed out. Due to that, the headset's safety feature kicked in and he was logged out of the game. When Norman woke up the next morning, he went ahead and logged back in. Norman was still in the cocoon. So he logged out and waited a few days before logging in again. This time her body felt very different and she heard the queen approaching her. She said something about Norman being ready and she was going to cut her out now. She began to cut the cocoon, and Norman fell to the ground. The queen leaned down and asked Norman how she felt. Norman stood up and felt how strange her body was now. She was just as tall and thin as before, and her hair was still the same. The only differences were that she was a girl now, so she no longer had her manhood, and her chest had gotten bigger. Then there were the new limbs, as she was no longer human but an Arachne like the queen. So she had a very large spider butt, with several new legs attached. They were so large and long that the spider part of her body held up the human-looking half, so her regular feet dangled above the ground. The queen walked over and helped Norman and started to explain how to use and operate her new legs. Once Norman got the hang of walking, she began to enjoy it. She was fast and strong in this body, and being a monster was very fun. Her new mother even began to teach her unique skills that only an Arachne can learn. Soon enough she was a badass spider queen, killing anyone who stepped into her lair, just like her mother. Unlike her mother, who is an NPC, she's still a player, so every time she kills another player, she gets experience from it. So after months of killing newbies trying to complete the Arachne killing quest, she was now level 99 and nearly impossible to kill. She became quite a famous player in the game for being the only person to obtain the Arachne race paired with the princess class, but also because she holds the record for the highest number of player kills. She's even had so many players wanting to join her she started a guild, which is just the official term for it. In truth, they're her minions and all of them serve her in any way she demands, and thanks to how realistic this virtual reality is, it can be extremely fun. So that's the story of how Norman went from an average boy to the vicious Arachne princess, and she loved it, so much so that she found herself spending more and more time in the game just to be her. Some days she didn't even leave the game, and had she read the manual for the headset, she'd know that could cause it to malfunction, and one day it did and Norman found herself unable to log out anymore. The headset she was wearing had short-circuited and broken, which disconnected Norman from her real body, which she found out from one of her minions whom she sent to investigate. Her real body was in a coma in a hospital. She thought about reaching out to the developers and telling them, but then she realized she could spend the rest of her time in this world as this cute queen, and that was so much better than her old life. So she tossed away her old life and became Era the Arachne princess and future queen, and her mother and servants would be there every step of the way for her.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Also check out my Patreon and DeviantArt pages. There you can find all my public stories. You can also support my work by getting early access to all stories, exclusive content, and even commission me to make you a custom story. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day.